Imagine a company so vast, so diverse that it produces everything from bread to airplanes. That's the basic idea behind a conglomerate, a single corporation that owns a collection of unrelated businesses. Think of it like a giant investment portfolio, but instead of stocks and bonds, it holds entire companies. Conglomerates weren't a new concept in the 1960s, but something about that decade, the post-war boom perhaps, or the sheer ambition of a new generation of CEOs fueled their spectacular rise. These weren't just companies, they were empires in the making, poised to conquer the American economy. The appeal was obvious. By owning a diverse range of businesses, conglomerates could spread their risk. If one industry faltered, others could pick up the slack. This promised stability and, more importantly, continuous growth for investors hungry for the next big thing. The conglomerate boom was on. The 1960s were a time of unprecedented economic growth and optimism. America was riding high, and the stock market became a symbol of this new prosperity. It was in this climate of exuberance that conglomerates truly flourished. Wall Street embraced these sprawling entities, rewarding their every acquisition with soaring stock prices. CEOs became financial celebrities, their faces gracing magazine covers and their every move scrutinized. Conglomerates were the darlings of the market, and everyone wanted a piece of the action. Companies big and small were swept up in a frenzy of mergers and acquisitions. It seemed like every other day a new deal was announced, further consolidating power and influence within these corporate behemoths. The very landscape of American business was being redrawn, with conglomerates leading the charge. The driving force behind the conglomerate boom was the allure of diversification. CEOs preached the gospel of synergy, arguing that by bringing together disparate businesses under one roof, they could unlock hidden value and achieve unprecedented efficiency. The logic was simple, even if the execution was anything but. By owning a diverse portfolio of companies, conglomerates could hedge their bets against economic downturns. If one sector struggled, another could compensate. This, in theory, would lead to more stable earnings and a higher stock price. Beyond risk mitigation, diversification also promised access to new markets and customers. A conglomerate with a foothold in, say, both the automotive and insurance industries could leverage its existing relationships to sell more cars and insurance policies. It was a tantalizing proposition. Growth through sheer scale and reach. No discussion of the conglomerate boom would be complete without mentioning two of its most prominent players, International Telephone and Telegraph, ITT, and Gulf and Western Industries. These weren't just companies, they were empires in their own right, testaments to the era's insatiable appetite for growth and diversification. ITT, under the leadership of the enigmatic Harold Geneen, transformed itself from a relatively modest telecommunications company into a global behemoth. Geneen was a master acquirer, swallowing up over 350 companies in a dizzying span of just 15 years. His empire encompassed everything from hotels Sheraton to baking, Continental Baking, to car rentals, Avis. Gulf and Western, helmed by the equally ambitious Charles Bluedorn, charted a similar course. Starting with a small auto parts manufacturer, Bluedorn went on to acquire a bewildering array of businesses, including Paramount Pictures, Madison Square Garden, and even a zinc mine. These two conglomerates, along with others like Litton Industries and Ling Temco Vought, LTV, became symbols of the era, their rise and fall inextricably linked to the fate of the conglomerate model itself. Section 5. The Maestro of Mergers, Harold Geneen and the ITT Playbook. Harold Geneen, the architect of ITT's meteoric rise, was as much a cultural phenomenon as a business leader. He was the epitome of the hard-driving, detail-oriented CEO, famous for his grueling work schedule and his insatiable thirst for data. Geneen's management style was legendary. He believed in tight control and relentless scrutiny, demanding detailed financial reports from his divisional heads, which he would then analyze meticulously, often late into the night. His infamous monthly meetings were the stuff of legend, marathon sessions where executives were grilled mercilessly on their performance. Geneen's strategy was simple: acquire undervalued companies, impose strict financial discipline, and watch the profits roll in. He wasn't interested in integrating businesses or fostering collaboration. He simply wanted to extract maximum value from each individual unit, using his formidable intellect and unwavering focus to drive performance. Whether you admired him or feared him, there was no denying Janine's impact on ITT and the business world at large. Section 6. Cracks in the facade. Why diversification wasn't so diverse after all. While the conglomerate boom seemed unstoppable for a time, cracks began to appear in the seemingly invincible facade. The very principle that had fueled their rise, diversification, would ultimately contribute to their downfall. The promise of diversification was that it would spread risk and create stability. However, in reality, many conglomerates found themselves stretched too thin, their resources spread across a dizzying array of unrelated businesses. Managing such vast and diverse empires proved to be far more challenging than anticipated. Furthermore, the much-touted synergies often failed to materialize. Instead of seamless integration and cross-industry collaboration, many conglomerates found themselves with a collection of disparate businesses that operated in silos, their potential stifled by bureaucratic layers and a lack of strategic direction. The dream of diversification was beginning to unravel. Section 7. The unraveling recessions, regulations, and the fall of the giants. The 1970s brought about a confluence of factors that spelled doom for the conglomerate boom. The economic landscape shifted dramatically, with recessions, oil shocks, and rising inflation putting a strain on even the most robust businesses. Conglomerates, with their sprawling structures and over-leveraged balance sheets, were particularly vulnerable. Adding to their woes, the government began to crack down on antitrust violations, making it more difficult for conglomerates to grow through acquisitions. The regulatory environment, once permissive, had become decidedly less friendly. As profits dwindled and stock prices tumbled, the allure of conglomerates faded. Investors, once enamored with their promise of limitless growth, began to question the wisdom of diversification. The market had turned, and conglomerates, once symbols of American ingenuity and ambition, were now seen as bloated and inefficient relics of a bygone era. Many of the era's titans, including ITT and Gulf and Western, were forced to restructure, selling off assets and refocusing on their core businesses. The conglomerate boom was over, leaving behind a legacy of both innovation and cautionary tales about the perils of unchecked growth and the limits of diversification. Section 8. Echoes of the boom conglomerate's legacy in the 21st century. While the conglomerate boom of the 1960s may seem like a distant memory, its legacy continues to shape the business world today. Though the era of sprawling, all-encompassing conglomerates has largely passed, the lessons learned from their rise and fall remain relevant. Today's business landscape is still home to conglomerates, though they are often more focused and strategically aligned than their predecessors. Companies like Berkshire Hathaway, owned by the legendary investor Warren Buffett, have demonstrated that diversification, when done right, can still be a powerful tool for growth and stability. The conglomerate boom also left an indelible mark on management theory and practice. The era's emphasis on financial engineering, performance metrics, and strategic acquisitions continues to influence how businesses are run today. Even the failures of the conglomerate model provided valuable lessons about the importance of focus, agility, and a deep understanding of the industries in which a company operates. Section 9. Lessons learned. The enduring relevance of the conglomerate era. The rise and fall of conglomerates offer a compelling case study in the cyclical nature of business trends and the importance of adaptability. While the specific circumstances of the 1960s may be unique, the underlying forces that drove the conglomerate boom, ambition, innovation, the pursuit of growth, are timeless. The conglomerate era reminds us that even the most successful business models are not immune to change. What works in one era may not work in another. The ability to adapt to shifting market conditions, to recognize and capitalize on new opportunities, and to learn from past mistakes is essential for long-term success. Ultimately, the legacy of the conglomerate boom lies not just in the rise and fall of specific companies, but in the enduring lessons it offers about the nature of business, the importance of leadership, and the need for both ambition and prudence in navigating the ever-changing landscape of the global economy.